The protagonist wakes up one day in a fantasy world called Asfial, a place filled with flying dragons, brave adventurers, fierce battles, and magic that resembles a childhood dream. Daily life soon reveals its harshness. Bread holds no meaning here. Meals often become boiled mush with tough meat, and toilets turn out to be squishy, waste-eating slimes. With no electricity and a medieval level of civilization, he slowly realizes how comfortable his old world was. While looking at the sky, he lifts his hand and wishes he could travel freely between worlds. A flash of light appears beside the door, and a unique power awakens. Moongate dimensional travel, a skill that lets him move between countless worlds, from dinosaur-ruled lands to advanced sci-fi realms. During one jump, he lands in a place called Akane and notices familiar streets and signs. The thought grows that this might be Japan, a country he has not seen in 10 years. A middle-aged man studies his unfamiliar face, brings him to a soba shop, and offers him lunch. The taste overwhelms him, and emotion rises as he experiences soba again after so long. When he glimpses his reflection, golden hair and green eyes stare back, and he realizes that even basic communication should be impossible. He understands that his skill must be enabling it. From that day on, he begins moving between Asfial and Japan through the Moongate, and eventually discovers that no living creature except him can cross between the two worlds. This limitation turns his ability into something rare and potentially valuable. He reflects on life in Asfial and recognizes its discomfort. Bathhouses cost too much, and everyday living feels rough. He eventually forms an idea. Goods hold different values in Japan and Asfial. Gold can buy a mansion in Japan, but in Asfial it barely earns a month's salary. Spices and sweets in Asfial, however, hold enormous worth, enough to equal the price of a house. He realizes that selling Japanese goods in Asfial could make him wealthy. After helping an elderly villager with chores, he receives a small reward and quietly celebrates the chance to buy sweets. A woman watches him with curiosity as he admits he loves them. He avoids revealing that he resells them in another world and heads toward town. Alan wanders through the busy market searching for someone reliable. He stops at a modest shop called Albert Merchant Shop and steps inside. Albert the merchant studies the unfamiliar chocolate with deep curiosity. He senses its value and believes nobles would instantly desire it, yet concern rises in him. Sweets symbolize wealth and influence, and merchant groups strictly control them. Albert knows his small shop would collapse under backlash from nobles and competing merchants, so he refuses to handle the trade. Alan accepts this and prepares to leave but mentions that he holds more rare items. Albert freezes at the thought. Alan only requests advice. Two village women enter the shop and spot Alan and Albert. They react with friendly surprise. One woman notices the chocolate, and Alan presents it as an exotic treat. She wonders if he has become a merchant, and he quickly denies it. He offers the chocolate as a sample, and both women brighten as they taste it. One buys a portion and promises to tell other mothers in the village. After they leave, Albert checks the display and realizes everything has sold out. Alan views the empty case and appreciates the unexpected success. He reflects that chocolate alone could have made him wealthy. Albert warns him not to underestimate the trade world. Alan offers the leftover chocolate as thanks, and Albert quietly reassesses him with growing respect. Alan returns to Japan through the Moongate. Warm water soon surrounds him in a real bath, and relief spreads through his body. His mind drifts to his unstable life in Asfial. No identity, no steady job, and constant money concerns. A faint hope rises as he reflects on the value of Japanese goods. Selling sweets did not make him rich, but it proved that Japanese items hold power in the other world. He sits at a cafe with a drink and studies the problem again. A sudden chime interrupts him, and the room falls silent as the Black Princess enters. Her presence feels heavy, and Alan recognizes her as a fellow Japanese transfer. Reincarnators and transfers often hold strong magic or powerful skills, many becoming adventurers or researchers. The Black Princess, leader of the Crimson Moon Brigade, has defeated high-level monsters and gained trust from nobles. Alan avoids drawing attention and quietly leaves. At a convenience store later, he notices new manga on display. Kita, the clerk, mentions its popularity. Alan picks up a women's fashion magazine as part of a plan and lets Kita bundle everything. He quietly hopes his gamble works because Asfial lacks entertainment, and approaching the Black Princess directly earlier felt too risky. Alan arrives at a restaurant marked Private Event and realizes she is inside. He considers his options but hesitates near the entrance. A young girl spots him and wonders what he is doing. He blurts out that he wants to deliver something to the Black Princess and hands it to her before rushing away. Aina stares after him in confusion and brings the package inside. Kalkira checks for poisons and confirms it's safe. The captain receives it and gently unwraps the paper, revealing a book titled, "You Fall in Love in Your Dreams." She stares at the cover with quiet surprise. Aina watches her closely until the captain suddenly steps toward her and calls her name, demanding to know who handed her the package. Shock freezes Aina as she realizes the gravity of the moment. The scene shifts to a forest where a girl runs through the trees, her breath unsteady and her heartbeat sharp with fear. Voices behind her shout to capture her, and confusion overwhelms her as she wonders what is happening and where she has been thrown. Only moments earlier she had been waiting to be picked up after school, and then the world twisted around her as if reality itself had collapsed. Terror convinces her that she might die here. Her strength disappears and she collapses with a heavy thud. When she opens her eyes again, a gentle voice greets her. A woman kneels beside her and checks on her condition. Startled, the girl recoils, but the woman softens her tone and reveals that she and her husband run a small inn. They found her unconscious at the bottom of a cliff. The memory of the fall returns to the girl and relief washes over her as she thanks them. The woman brushes it off and remarks that surviving a fall like that suits a Miko. The girl freezes in confusion and wonders what a Miko is. The woman studies her black hair and explains that Mikos are messengers of the gods who appear from another world, each holding a special power the girl likely has not realized yet. The girl admits she understands nothing because everything happened too fast. The woman encourages her to rest first, promising that clarity will come later. The girl nods with gratitude. When she eventually departs, the couple wishes her good health, and she bows deeply in return. After leaving the inn, the girl starts her journey with a single purpose: to return to her original world. Her power as a Miko shields her from danger, allowing her to travel alone without harm. As she moves from place to place, rumors of a black-haired wanderer spread across the land, and people drawn by those stories slowly gather around her. That small group grows and eventually becomes known everywhere as the Crimson Moon Brigade. When she looks back, she recognizes how fortunate she was. Each person who joined her supported her without prying into her real goal. She quietly hopes that one day she will have the courage to reveal the truth to them. The wish drifts away as the scene shifts to a dim tavern. A door clicks open and a soft welcome rises from behind the counter. A cloaked girl enters. Alan turns his head, lifts a letter, and wonders if she is the sender. The bartender reminds him to lock up afterward, and Alan gives a short acknowledgement before setting down his drink. The girl stands beside him, composed and silent. Alan glances toward the counter and gestures for Zian to bring her a drink. A quiet distance settles between them in the empty bar. Alan eventually breaks it with a calm smile and tries to ease her tension, mentioning that he chose this place because a private meeting between people from the same homeland feels safer. Her cautious eyes narrow, and she wonders if he is Japanese. Alan nods without hesitation and reveals that he is a reincarnator, which explains his appearance. Alan then requests her name. She straightens slightly and introduces herself as Shizuku Sioji, 18 years old. Alan responds with a light tone and gives his own introduction. Alan, 20 years old, drifting without a job in this world. Shizuku studies Alan and clarifies that she meant his name from the original world. Alan pauses and finally offers his true name, Masato Shinjo, while recalling that he had lived an ordinary life as a 25-year-old man before his death. She lowers her gaze and apologizes internally, believing she has stepped too deeply into his past. But Alan lifts his head with calm acceptance and shows no discomfort. She watches him closely and notices that he reacts in no special way when he hears her surname, Sioji. This observation makes her wonder if he has met transfers from a different era. Alan tilts his head, fully lost, which convinces her that he truly has no idea who she is. She forms the quiet conclusion that he might not know her simply because she may be someone with public visibility in her own time, perhaps even someone with idol-level recognition. Alan notices her empty glass and reaches for another drink, observing that she might want a refill. With no bartender around, he steps in naturally. He mentions that he can handle various tasks on his own, including bringing items across worlds or even sending goods when needed. Shizuku accepts his usefulness but remains cautious as she evaluates him. Alan opens his belongings and retrieves a chilled bottle of green tea, offering it to her with an easy confidence, having already guessed she would appreciate another drink. Shizuku accepts the bottle and samples it quietly. Alan observes her reaction and notes that the flavor might differ from what she drinks at home. She takes slow sips and realizes the tea's taste and aroma feel completely different from her own, yet the gentle flavor begins to comfort her. Alan watches her and recognizes that she maintains a calm and mature presence, but she is still a high school girl beneath that composure. Shizuku, meanwhile, feels embarrassed for showing vulnerability earlier. Alan does not feel bothered and remembers how overwhelmed he became the first time he tasted soba after reincarnating. Her curiosity rises at the mention of soba, and Alan considers bringing some for her. She originally hopes for a clue that might return her to Japan, but receiving familiar items becomes a small comfort. She then decides to sponsor Alan in exchange for his cooperation. She wants him to obtain certain items for her, though she keeps her expectations modest, because she lacks an identity and stable income in this world. She intends to write letters for him and checks whether he can handle documents well, planning to rely on those skills. Later, Shizuku gathers everyone early in the morning and introduces Alan to the group as their newest member. Alan offers a polite greeting. Aina recognizes him as the strange man from the previous day and shows doubt, which stirs concern among the others. Shizuku stands firm and expresses complete trust in him. The girls accept her judgment, but still worry because Alan is a man, and their whispers spread quietly between them. Shizuku clarifies that Alan will not join them in combat. Instead, he will manage logistics because he has experience with trade and arithmetic. She assigns Aina to train him. During training, Aina watches Alan and wonders how he managed to draw the captain's attention so intensely. She has never seen the captain react with such excitement before. Alan reflects inwardly and admits that earning her interest took effort, but it succeeded. He never expected that effort to lead to joining the brigade. As he stands in the training yard, he grows aware of how unusual the situation is because a man joining the Crimson Moon Brigade has never happened before. Aina accepts that the brigade needs extra manpower for now. Alan checks if she has really been managing everything alone. Aina confirms it, and he stands overwhelmed because she has been handling supplies for 30 people. Aina explains that only she and the captain can read and do math, so the work naturally falls on them. She handles the stock check and sends Alan to restock supplies, noting that the brigade's name should keep merchants from overcharging him and instructing him to pay whatever they request. Alan quietly hopes she will not push herself too hard while the captain watches them from the window. Later, Alan stands with a letter in his hand and struggles to accept his situation. Becoming the Crimson Moon Brigade's merchant was supposed to give him freedom to trade with nobles, yet now he ends up as a member of the brigade itself. Still, now that he is here, he wants to prove himself and earn the trust of everyone around him. The woman who bought chocolates from him earlier approaches and calls out to him. She already knows the rumor that he has joined the Crimson Moon Brigade, and Alan realizes how quickly gossip moves among the local moms. She wonders if he and the Black Princess share something personal, which leaves him overwhelmed because none of it is true. He understands that the captain simply liked the items he brought, and he sees himself as nothing more than an add-on. The woman reacts with curiosity while Alan recognizes how fast rumors spread. The same woman meets him again later and praises the sweets he brought last time. Alan appreciates her kindness, and she congratulates him on starting his merchant work. He admits he is only running errands for now, and she warmly invites him to visit her store, promising him a discount. Alan hesitates, but she insists and wishes him luck. He thanks her, realizing once again how much he owes to the local moms and how supportive they are. A crowd soon gathers around him, calling out his name and cheering. The people already know he has taken on a larger role with the Crimson Moon Brigade. They offer him supplies from their shops as a sign of support, and Alan accepts everything with gratitude before returning to the brigade headquarters. After gathering all the supplies, Alan returns and hands the invoices to Aina. She reviews the papers while he stays in the corner with caution. She calculates the total and pauses when the numbers come out far lower than normal. Alan wonders if he went over budget, but Aina realizes it is the opposite. The supplies are 20% cheaper than usual. Suspicion sharpens in her expression, and she wonders if he relied on something improper. Alan clarifies that acquaintances offered him discounts out of goodwill and mentions that she can confirm it if she wants. Aina decides not to pursue it further but acknowledges that he completed the task well. Alan later walks through Japan and feels how calm the village is. He carries a letter from Sioji and wonders if it will truly reach the Honorable Shizuku Sioji and make any difference at all. Alan gazes at the distant city and quietly wonders at the sight of the royal capital stretching across the horizon. The brigade arrives in Lineberg, and the captain addresses everyone, acknowledging how hard they worked throughout the long journey. She announces that Lineberg will now serve as their base of operations and that their new team house is already prepared. Holding a sheet of paper, she instructs the members to check their assigned rooms and settle in, concluding the announcements for the day. Alan responds with steady readiness as the group disperses. The captain turns to him and mentions that once he finishes his tasks, she wants him to return to Japan for a short while. Alan wonders if she needs anything specific, but she clarifies that it is not about that and simply urges him to go, assuring him that he will understand once he arrives. She adds that she is counting on him. Alan accepts the request with a quiet nod. As they walk, she casually brings up another errand. She wants him to pick up the next volume of Dream Love. Alan realizes she must truly enjoy it. Alan arrives in Japan and immediately wonders about the unusual commotion in the village. When he notices unfamiliar men standing around, his curiosity grows. Genji greets him warmly after a long time, and Alan reflects on how long it has been. Genji explains that the people gathered nearby belong to the Sioji group and have been searching for Alan for over a week. Alan reacts with overwhelmed confusion and repeats the name Sioji while trying to understand the situation. Genji remarks that Alan not knowing anything might actually be better, since the group has been looking for him very diligently. Still unsure who Sioji really are, Alan decides to approach them and moves forward to speak with them. Alan walks up to the car with hesitation and utters a polite greeting, drawing the attention of the woman inside. She studies him with quiet focus and wonders if he is Alan. He confirms with a small nod. She closes her eyes briefly, steps aside, and instructs him to get in the car, noting that the heat outside is too much. As Alan reacts, she flicks open a lighter and the flame rises as she prepares to smoke. Sitting inside, she takes a slow drag and remarks that finding him wasn't easy, and that proper cigarettes are impossible to get here. Alan responds awkwardly while she introduces herself as Akira Kamiki and urges him to simply call her Akira. Alan agrees with hesitation and wonders if all of this connects to Sioji's letter. As he expresses the thought, he suddenly realizes that Akira clearly holds knowledge about Miss Sioji, just as the car door slams shut. Akira speaks into her device and reports that the target is secured while she requests immediate backup. Alan sits tense beside her as she urges him to relax, assuring him that no harm comes to him if he behaves. She warns calmly that returning in one piece would be preferable. Alan gathers himself and wonders aloud about the situation, focusing on Akira. She keeps her eyes on the road while he admits he does not know the details. His confusion deepens as he wonders what the Sioji group truly is. Akira gives a steady explanation. The Sioji group stands as a massive corporation with ventures in IT, real estate, and several key industries. She adds that the group operates both within the country and internationally. She describes it as a form of corporate conglomerate, leaving Alan quietly overwhelmed. Akira continues with measured clarity, explaining that the Sioji family originally stands among the wealthiest families in Tokyo. She notes that the company becomes the major corporation it is today under Miss Sioji's father, Ryugen Sioji. She adds that the Kamiki family has served the Sioji household for generations, gripping the steering wheel as she quietly confirms that she continues this duty as well. She reflects on how she has stayed by Miss Sioji's side since her middle school years. Her eyes lower as she recalls how she first noticed something wrong 3 years ago. The same year, she began working full-time at the main estate. A quiet worry settles in her expression as she remembers watching Miss Sioji through the window, sensing a heavy unease building inside her. She realizes that something about Miss Sioji's quiet figure, sitting alone with her tea, marks the beginning of that unsettling feeling. Shizuku thanks Akira and praises her tea, while Akira gently reminds her that she does not need to be formal when they are alone, though Shizuku admits she cannot change that habit. She then wonders if Akira recorded the Dream Love anime for her, and Akira confirms it with calm confidence. Shizuku mentions that she will be staying overnight from today and proposes a screening session for the night. Akira's smile softens as she agrees with quiet devotion, responding exactly as Shizuku wishes. Akira notes that it is about time for Miss Sioji to return, yet the surroundings feel unusually noisy. A voice suddenly calls out to her in panic. She turns, and her eyes widen as she hears the report. Miss Sioji has gone missing. Confusion spreads through the estate as people demand answers, wondering how this could happen and what the guards were doing. Someone urges them to check the surveillance cameras, but even then the staff insists they already did. Shizuku demands to see the footage. The staff brings it up immediately. The moment it plays, they freeze. Shizuku has vanished from the screen. Akira reflects that the search for Miss Sioji still continues, with specialist teams scouring the globe, yet no leads have surfaced. She turns to Alan, urging him to begin talking. She offers an apology for the earlier deception and shifts the atmosphere toward the main issue, signaling that it is time to get to the point. She walks through the hallway and reflects on how surprising it is to find a building like this near a Kani village. In the meantime, Chairman Ryugen enters the room and acknowledges Alan, confirming his identity. Chairman Ryugen observes Alan and recognizes the overwhelming presence described in his daughter's letter. Alan feels pressured and wonders if all powerful corporate figures carry this kind of weight. The chairman notices his reaction and reassures him, stating that he does not see Alan as a kidnapper. The sudden certainty startles Alan. The chairman holds the letter and explains that it uses the Sioji family's private cipher. Only family members can write or decode it, so neither the sender nor the content can be faked. This convinces him that his daughter is alive and that she trusts Alan. Alan then wonders how they located him when he has no fixed address and no formal employment. The chairman explains that the postmark narrowed the search, and the description inside the letter matched him exactly. Alan realizes it makes sense. The chairman then shares his disbelief. Shizuku disappeared 3 years ago. She was always surrounded by a dozen guards, yet she still vanished without leaving any trace. The family searched desperately and reached their limit. Then, just when they had no leads left, this handwritten letter from her arrived. The letter states that Shizuku has gained an ally and asks the chairman to support him. Chairman Ryugen then turns to Alan and urges him to share what he knows. Alan pauses and first checks the room, wondering if it contains any recording devices or surveillance equipment. The chairman confirms that the security is airtight and the windows are one-way mirrors. Alan decides it will be faster to show the truth directly. Akira reacts with alarm and moves to protect the chairman, but he orders both Akira and the guard to lower their weapons. They hesitate, but they obey. Alan opens the shimmering gate he created with his own power, and reveals that it connects directly to another world, where Shizuku waits on the other side. The sight leaves the chairman and Akira stunned and ask for the condition to open this gate. Alan admits he still does not understand everything about the gate, but he knows only non-living objects can pass through it, aside from himself. The chairman approaches the gate and examines it carefully. He then asks what his daughter is doing on the other side. Alan explains that the other world is a fantasy realm, and that Shizuku leads an adventurer team there, with him working under her. After touching the gate himself, the chairman quietly accepts the reality of it. The sight feels unbelievable, yet he cannot dispute what he sees. Ryugen remains uncertain, and admits that Alan's story still feels like a fairy tale. Kamiki questions whether he truly intends to trust Alan. Ryugen then turns to Alan with a request. He wants proof that his daughter is safe, just as the letter suggested. He presents a smartphone and instructs Alan to bring back a photo of Shizuku. If Alan succeeds, Ryugen promises to cooperate exactly as the letter outlined. Alan studies the device, unsure of how it works. He notes that it resembles a phone, but not the type he remembers. Ryugen explains that Akira will teach him the basics later. Alan accepts the task, and Ryugen calls his name again, to make sure he understands the weight of the request. Ryugen admits he does not know how much of Alan's explanation is true, nor whether Alan carries any hidden motives. Even so, he acknowledges that the letter is genuine, and the fact that Alan delivered it cannot be denied. Ryugen offers his thanks and asks Alan to give his regards to his daughter. Alan accepts the request without hesitation and agrees fully. Shizuku listens quietly as Alan explains what happened. He reflects on how he never expected her father to travel all the way to the countryside. Shizuku accepts this calmly, noting that it cannot be helped because she had been the family's heir at the time. Alan adds that her father even brought a full entourage to the village, which felt excessive. Shizuku murmurs that she understands. Alan then shows her the smartphone Ryugen entrusted to him. The chairman wants proof that she is safe, specifically a photo of her. Shizuku asks to borrow the device for a moment, and Alan hands it to her. She begins tapping through it with ease, surprising him with how good she is at using it. When the video opens, her father's voice plays, addressing her directly and saying that if she is watching this message, it means she is truly alive. Alan glances toward the screen, amazed at how clear it looks, realizing the quality of modern phones is incredible. Shizuku lets out a small reaction, noting that the message is just like her father. She quietly watches the video, her eyes softening as she holds the phone close. Alan, feeling a bit guilty for looking, admits he feels nosy for peeking. After the video ends, she looks around and wonders where Alan went, since she wants to return the phone to him. Shizuku arrives just as everyone finishes gathering, making her appearance perfectly timed. One of the girls approaches Alan and asks to see the phone, and he hands it over. Alan then gathers everyone for a picture, prompting the group to move toward him. Shizuku realizes what is happening, but before she can respond, Aina grabs her hand and pulls her forward. Caught off guard, Shizuku stumbles into the group, still processing how quickly the situation has shifted. Alan raises the phone and calmly counts down as the group gathers and settles into place. The shutter clicks, capturing Shizuku and the others together in a single, composed moment. Aina checks on Alan, noting how he is gradually getting used to life in the brigade, while Alan admits he hasn't bonded with everyone yet. She reassures him that there is no need to rush and mentions that he will also need time to settle in at the new base. Shifting the mood, she brings up the Royal Capital Street Festival, explaining that it is a large weekend market where merchants from across the country gather with rare goods. Aina explains that the market offers everything from everyday goods to items for nobles, and since the brigade won't begin adventuring for a while, she suggests that Alan take a break and explore it. Alan pauses, then wonders whether anyone is allowed to set up a stall there, showing clear interest in the idea. Alan returns to the base while still unsure of what to sell for the upcoming street festival. He has already secured the application but struggles to settle on an idea. As he reviews his notes in frustration, Camille, Luca, and Lazuli notice his return and approach him with curiosity about what he is working on. Alan attempts to slip out quietly, assuming he would only make everyone uncomfortable if he stayed. The girls stop him, confused about why he is trying to leave, and Lazuli reassures him that no one in the brigade feels uneasy around him anymore. Alan, still unsure, reflects on how unwelcome he thought he was at first. The girls then admit they had bad experiences with men in the past, which caused their initial awkwardness, though none of it was meant to harm him. The girls express their gratitude for Alan's presence. The captain who once seemed weighed down now appears more at ease, and even Aina offered praise. Anyone who supports the brigade is welcomed, and Alan is no exception. Alan's feelings settle as he realizes this. The group sees him as a little brother, though Camel quietly blurts out that he gives off a dad-like vibe, leaving him puzzled. Even so, Alan feels fine as long as acceptance is there. Alan works on an application for the street festival, planning to try running a small stall. The others grow curious, noticing his paperwork and the items spread out beside him. He admits he is still deciding what to sell, though the idea excites everyone around him. They react with surprise at the thought of him opening a shop, even if it is only a trial. Alan considers selling sweets made for nobles, since costly goods are beyond his budget, but no other ideas come to mind yet. The group thinks over ideas, each one trying to picture what nobles might want. The choice seems difficult, and everyone grows quiet while mulling it over. Suddenly, Luca rushes toward the shelves with excitement, catching Alan's attention. She returns with a book held up in her hands, offering it as a possible item for the stall. Alan notices the book Luca brings, recognizing it as the one their captain once recommended. The group lights up with fond memories of how enjoyable it was. Though Alan quietly wonders how they can even read Japanese, Luca appears delighted for her own reasons, hoping to see the next volume as well. Alan reflects on the idea, realizing books might not be affordable to produce in larger numbers, yet entertainment items could still work. The others droop for a moment at the thought of losing the idea, but brighten again when Alan chooses to prepare a small stock instead. The girls cheer with bright smiles, eager to visit Alan's future stall, and their excitement lingers as the scene shifts to a wide view of the modern city. Alan heads into an elevator, feeling the weight of what comes next. He reflects on handing the smartphone to Chairman Ryogan, unsure if his explanation reached him, and senses that the real challenge now starts. Alan steps into the room where the staff already waits for him. A woman named Kamaiki introduces herself as his new personal assistant, and presents herself with a calm, professional smile. She expresses her readiness to work with him and begins to guide him forward. Alan tries to recover from the earlier moment, admitting his surprise while Kamiki keeps her formal tone. She considers his request for casual speech but turns it down. She notices his calmer expression and concludes that Chairman Ryogan must have accepted his explanation. Kamiki confirms this, explaining that the chairman reacted with excitement. The glowing mineral Alan sent, the luminite, has been identified as a completely unknown substance. With this proof, she notes that there is no longer any reason to doubt him. Kamiki begins outlining the promised support step by step. She hands Alan his identity and residency papers, then moves on to the living arrangements. Alan learns that he will be staying in the provided room, already furnished with a computer and other necessities, with meals available through the staff. She then presents a black card with no credit limit, explaining its purpose. Finally, she gives him access to his new bank account. The moment Alan sees the balance, shock washes over him, leaving him frozen in place as Kamiki checks on him. Alan continues reacting to the overwhelming support he has just received. He feels grateful, yet the scale of the help strikes him as far too much. Kamiki remains calm and explains that the assistance comes with conditions. She lays out the first condition. Alan's cooperation is needed for research on the gate. The organization wants to understand both his abilities and the other world connected to him. She then moves to the second, more important condition. Kamiki states that Alan is expected to give his full support to the young mistress. Alan agrees to the conditions with calm confidence, easing Kamiki's brief worry. He promises to fulfill his role, and Kamiki immediately shifts into assisting him, ready to handle his safety and support. Alan thanks her, then raises a hand as he already has a request in mind, while Kamiki stands ready to respond. Kamiki walks beside Alan while she considers the idea of selling entertainment goods. She understands his plan, and Alan reflects on how he cannot choose the right items himself because he knows little about modern Japan. He explains inwardly that he needs connections in this city. Back in his homeland, he depended on familiar faces, but the capital is new to him. Kamiki wonders about his reason for opening a shop as she walks at his side, listening closely while he thinks through his goals. Kamiki listens as Alan thinks through his reasoning. He reflects that gaining the favor of nobles would steady his finances, and their connections and information would benefit the brigade as well. She notes that she can offer him unlimited funds, but he still prefers another path. Alan quietly admits that he dreams of wealth, yet wants to earn it on his own. Kamiki finds his sincerity unexpected but reassuring, while he wonders why she is surprised. As they continue walking, she shifts her focus and waits for his answer about what he intends to stock in his shop, watching him with steady curiosity. Alan scans the displays in the shop and eventually points to the item he has been searching for. He focuses on trading cards, seeing them as a strong option. Kamiki watches as he explains his reasoning. He reflects on how people in Asfial lack entertainment, making such items appealing. Kamiki considers the idea while standing beside him. Alan thinks through the choices, feeling unsure because the options are unfamiliar. At the same time, he notes that nobles enjoy board games and card games like chess or regular playing cards. Because of that, trading cards seem unique enough to draw attention. Kamiki insists on staying with him, knowing that the young mistress would be heartbroken if anything happened. Alan accepts her help and trusts her to handle the work. Kamiki remains steady and confident as she takes charge. Before that, Alan tries to excuse her, thinking she must be busy, but she keeps a firm stance and refuses to leave his side. She plans ahead, already thinking about sweets and books for the shop after this. Alan then expresses relief, grateful that she has taken care of everything. Kamiki responds calmly, making it clear that helping him is no burden. She keeps the situation under control while Alan gathers himself. Earlier, Erica checks if the huge order is truly enough for what Alan needs. Kamiki confirms that the order is only a trial run. Alan realizes how much trouble she has saved him. Before that, Kamiki contacts the company and arranges for an entire warehouse of cross-world cards. Alan stiffens in shock as she completes the request with ease. Even earlier, Kamiki explains that the Sioji group manages many different businesses, and entertainment is one of them. A subsidiary of the group handles trading cards, so securing stock is simple for her. The scene then shifts to a store filled with books, DVDs, CDs, games, and manga. Alan looks around in awe. The amount of media is overwhelming. DVDs now look the same as CDs, and televisions are thin and modern. Everything feels incredible to him as he takes in the sight. Alan walks through the store and realizes how much the world has changed since his time in Alkane Village. Modern games surprise him, and the large variety leaves him speechless. He stops when he notices a familiar title. It is a popular series called Dream Love, something the Sioji family cherishes. Memories surface as he recalls seeing Akira's scene from it long ago. A wave of nostalgia settles in. Kamiki watches him quietly and remembers that the young mistress once invited her to watch the series together, although the moment never happened. The thought brings a soft ache to her heart. Alan senses the shift in her mood and grows uneasy, worried he may have touched something painful. Kamiki steadies herself and explains through her calm posture that her feelings for the young mistress remain deep, but serving her directly is not the only way to support her. She then picks up the item and prepares to purchase it, intending to send it to the young mistress. Alan accepts her decision and considers whether placing all entertainment, such as manga and dreams, onto a tablet might make things simpler. Kamiki, however, prefers offering a wide variety, believing the people of Asfial would appreciate more options if entertainment is rare for them. Alan watches her and realizes she carries an older sister-like presence. Steady, caring, and quietly protective. Luca brings Alan the stall permit he requested, and Alan feels relieved that it is approved without trouble. Kamiki updates him about the goods and mentions that everything will arrive on the day of the festival because there is no place to store them in advance. Alan accepts that he has no shortcuts this time, while Kamiki privately hopes the stall performs poorly, so leftover stock will give her a better chance at getting the next volume she wants. Alan senses her intent and finds it amusing. Alan then checks when Luca and the others plan to attend. Luca expects to arrive in the evening with Camilla while Luzali remains occupied with her own work. Luca grows curious about Alan's stall location since Alan aims to serve nobles. Alan's stall is placed on West Main Street at booth 13. Luca considers this location carefully. The Western District hosts the most skilled merchants in the capital and sits beside the Central District. The Central District stays closed off from ordinary citizens, housing only the wealthiest nobles. Rumors circulate about a few eccentric nobles who sneak out during festivals to visit the busy streets. Luca realizes that Alan's booth might attract their attention if the rumor happens to be true. The possibility could cause a large commotion. As Luca studies him, she suspects Alan may be planning exactly that. Alan maintains a calm expression and leaves the truth to her imagination. Luca laughs while Alan reacts in surprise. She considers him a very interesting guy. Alan wonders if it is a compliment and thinks she might be mocking him. Luca looks forward to the festival and leaves, with Alan watching her go. Alan feels unsettled for a reason he cannot name. Even so, all his preparations are finished, and he only waits for the festival day to arrive. He walks outside and accepts that the coming events will unfold in their own way. At the festival stall area, merchants welcome visitors and display high-quality mineral accessories. Alan finishes his setup and feels ready for the Royal Capital Street Festival. He brings a few books but intends to be selective about selling them. His main goal is to sell chocolate. He also brings trading cards out of curiosity. Although the real excitement usually happens in the evening, the morning crowd is already large. Most visitors appear to be upper class. Surrounding stalls look impressive, but Alan believes his products can compete. He wants to take full advantage of the opportunity. However, no one approaches his stall. Other stands attract customers, while his receives only cautious glances. He wonders if his items are too unusual or if he is simply bad at selling. Albert walks over and notices Alan looking discouraged. When Alan questions why Albert is in the capital, Albert explains that he is on business and decided to visit the festival. He remarks on Alan becoming a merchant and jokes about the lack of customers. Alan reacts with annoyance, but Albert clarifies that he is not making fun of him and offers advice despite being a rival. He explains that selling unfamiliar food is difficult. A sample might help, but the wealthy visitors likely would not taste food on the spot. He believes Alan would have better luck selling to middle-class customers later, since the festival happens weekly. Alan realizes he needs more experience. Albert encourages him not to give up because the afternoon session is still ahead. He says quality and trust are the most important parts of business, and Alan possesses both. Alan reminds Albert that he is not dismissing him just because his shop is small. Albert prepares to leave but mentions that Alan might discover something beyond his original goal. By evening, a few customers visit the stall, but overall results are disappointing. Alan considers closing early once Luca and the others arrive. As the sky darkens, he reflects on Albert's words about finding something unexpected. Then Alan notices someone approaching and recognizes the figure as the Marquise's heir, who is believed to be wandering incognito. The nearby crowd whispers in excitement. The heir examines Alan's stall, confirming the rumors about nobles sneaking into the festival. Alan stays alert as the heir looks over the goods. He observes the confections, including chocolate. Alan explains the items, and the heir decides to inspect the chocolate carefully despite the attendant's concerns. The heir reassures the attendant and asks for more information. Alan describes chocolate as a sweet created by grinding cacao beans and mixing them with sugar and vanilla, before shaping the mixture into solid form. He notes that it melts at body temperature, so he holds it by the wrapper. The heir copies the motion, bites into it, and the strong aroma catches him off guard. After chewing, he enjoys the taste. Alan collects the wrapper while the heir prepares to buy a full box. A box of 8 costs 30,000 gold, which the heir views as cheap. Since it is a trial price, he decides to purchase every box. He hands over far more than the listed amount, treating the excess as compensation for earlier surprise. Alan accepts the payment, and the heir shifts his attention to the other sweets. Alan presents confeito, caramel, and other sugar confections. The heir grows absorbed and selects item after item, spending over 1,000,000 gold without hesitation. He then notices a paper bag containing a trading card game. Alan describes it as a game where each pack holds 5 random cards used to build a 40-card deck, with rules included. The heir buys every pack immediately. Alan is grateful yet unsettled by the ease of the purchases. The heir admires the artwork, keeps 1 pack for himself, and leaves after expressing his appreciation. Alan watches him go, stunned by the entire event. Moments later, Luca and Camilla arrive out of breath. The stall is already sold out. Camilla reacts with disappointment, wanting the next volume of Yum Koi. Alan hands her the 3rd volume, which he had kept aside. She accepts it and plans to read it with the others later. Alan reflects on the moment and senses that Albert's earlier words about finding something beyond his goal might be true. Later that night, Alan finishes bookkeeping when Sioji enters for water and pauses near him. Alan reflects on the festival and the strange feeling lingering inside him. He began merchant work to earn money for himself, yet constant gratitude from others now unsettles him. Sioji listens quietly and offers him a small sign of appreciation. She presents a necklace with a vivid rainbow shine, made from a rare gemstone often used as a magical catalyst. She considers it still not enough to match the gratitude she holds for him, yet she gives it with calm resolve. She reflects that even though he claims to be acting for his own benefit, his involvement allowed her to reconnect with both her family and with Akira. Alan reacts with a startled laugh, and Sioji apologizes as she recalls that Chairman Ryugen expressed almost the same sentiment. She realizes again how similar the two of them are, parent and child. She calls Alan's name and he looks toward her. She observes how he continues supporting both her father and Akira, and notes that the resemblance between the two remains strong. Alan accepts this and commits to doing what he can. She thanks him once more and decides to take good care of the necklace. Alan leaves the Royal Capital Festival with its lively mood still clear in his mind. He returns home, thinks about the day he just experienced, and gently hands the chocolates he bought at the festival to Erika as a gift. A Pramica medal lands near Alan while he sits quietly on a bench, lost in thought. He picks it up and recognizes its shape as the morning stays calm around him. Camille rushes over during her training break and greets him with bright energy. She leans in, studies the medal, and reacts sharply as Alan waits in silence. Before he can learn more, Erika calls both of them to join everyone for tea, and he misses the chance to ask anything. They gather around the table where Erika serves the cookies she received from him. Camille becomes delighted by the cute animal-shaped cookies, and Luca enjoys their sweetness. Alan sits with them and watches their cheerful mood, feeling slightly out of place. Erika wonders how the bazaar went after hearing that it was a big success, and Alan shares that everything sold out because one person bought all the items. He mentions that the same customer handed him the Pramica medals earlier. When Alan shows the medals, the group leans forward in surprise. Erika identifies them as gold and silver Pramica medals used to enter or exit restricted areas, including dungeons. Camille adds that people receive these only when the guild acknowledges them, so they are rare and valuable. Luca admits it is her first time seeing a gold one. Erika recalls that Camille also holds a silver Pramica, and Camille confirms it belongs to the academic district. She explains that the emblem on a Pramica decides which academy someone can enter. They realize Alan's silver Pramica carries the emblem of N5 Magic Academy, meaning he now has access to the academic district in the royal capital. The group assumes the gold Pramica is likely tied to the central district, though the details remain unclear. Alan later travels with Camille to the academic district. He observes that this district is the largest in the royal capital, filled with academies and government research facilities. Camille walks ahead confidently while Alan feels relieved she joined him, knowing he could easily get lost alone. He keeps the gift inside his bag and worries about keeping it cold, so they hurry. At the dungeon gate checkpoint, Alan shows the gold Pramica, and the guards instantly allow both of them to pass. Once inside, Camille feels nostalgic, as if she has stepped back into a different world. Alan spots a tall building and studies it with curiosity. Camille identifies it as the Grand Cathedral of Sandrique Religious School, the only religious school in the capital. She explains that the school teaches medical techniques, holy magic, and healing magic, and that healing magic requires advanced training. She notes that the wise leader Nana also graduated from a religious school and can use both healing and holy magic, an extremely rare combination. The rumor claims that Nana's reputation even surpasses the captain's. Alan absorbs this quietly and realizes he still has not spoken with the vice captain. Camille reasons that both leaders remain busy and that Rafine's dislike of men makes distance safer for now. She believes Rafine does not truly mean harm, so the current arrangement should be fine. Alan accepts her view. While walking, Alan wonders about Camille's schooling, and she shares that she studied at Lyethal Magic Academy, a lower-class academy for commoners. She explains that magic power and aptitude pass through bloodlines, so nobles attend high-class academies. She describes In5 Academy, their destination, as an elite institution. She outlines the social structure. Magic capacity shapes status, placing royals and nobles at the top and commoners in the lower ranks. Alan understands it as magic supremacy, where strong bloodlines create stronger descendants, shaping the Coinley's kingdom's growth. He feels the system still unreal, but Camille notes that commoners rarely see these things up close. She then points ahead as the massive N5 Academy appears, resembling a castle. At the entrance, Alan presents his Pramica and requests permission for Camille. The guard approves and activates a magic device that scans Alan's right hand. Camille points out that the device acts as security and warns that misbehavior summons guards. As they walk in, she shows him the famed Loin dormitory, reserved for the royal family. Alan studies it and notices how different everything is from her lower-class academy. Alan finally thinks about the person they are meeting. Camille identifies him as Ray Castino, the customer from his bazaar stall. When she recognizes the full name, Ray Castino, eldest son of Marquis Castino, she freezes and then panics. She runs away in fear, overwhelmed by the danger of approaching a great noble as a commoner. Alan catches her hand, but she pulls away, convinced she has been deceived. She trembles at the idea that the Castino family, one of the 3 great noble houses, could punish her simply for being disrespectful. She also explains the structure of the dormitories. Beyond the royal Loin dormitory, the other 3 belong to the 3 great noble families. Since Ray is from the Castino family, Alan must visit the Great Eagle dormitory. After guiding him, she begs to leave. Alan realizes she lacks the Pramica to remain in this restricted area and warns her she could be arrested. She accepts this and insists that someone like her could never stand before a Marquis heir, believing that meeting a knight or a declining baronial family is the highest she could ever reach. Alan apologizes and promises to make things right later. A staff member approaches and recognizes him as the expected guest. He guides Alan to a waiting room and mentions that Lord Ray will return shortly. Camille notices Alan turning pale and worries for him. Alan forces himself to calm down, though the pressure nearly sends his soul drifting away. Soon after, Ray arrives. Alan and Camille turn toward the sound of the door. Ray greets them warmly, remembering their encounter at the bazaar. Alan maintains polite composure and expresses appreciation, while Ray reassures him through an easy, confident tone, easing the tension between them. Ray moves past Alan and pauses when he sees Camille. He quietly studies her, curious about who she is. Alan answers nervously as sweat forms along his forehead, and he struggles to stay composed in front of the noble boy. Camilla remains stiff and silent. Her gaze sharpens toward Alan, and her intense stare makes him panic inside. He glances toward her for help, but she remains frozen, and escape feels impossible. Ray stands nearby while Alan remains locked in place under Camille's icy glare. Alan eventually places the paper bag on the table and offers it to Ray as a meeting gift. Ray looks intrigued. A servant arrives with a tray and prepares the table. Alan explains that the sweets inside require careful storage. Ray signals the servant to continue preparing, and the setup finishes smoothly. Ray samples the fruit tart and reacts with bright delight. Camille notices how cheerful he becomes compared to Alan, who still looks tense. Alan encourages them to enjoy the tart while it is cold, but Camille sits frozen like a statue. Ray then offers a formal introduction as Ray Castellano, a first-year junior high student at the academy. He expresses admiration for the tart, calling it the most beautiful and delicious treat he has ever eaten, which relieves Alan. He continues and introduces the girl beside him as his cousin, Chris Elisa. Chris reacts awkwardly while Ray teases her for acting stiff. She tries to quiet him, but he reveals something important. Nobles possess both a given name and a family name. Alan slowly follows the logic. Chris's full identity becomes clear. Chris Elisa Canlise, the princess of the kingdom. Alan studies the royal records and recognizes the name Chris Riesa Canlise, and she wonders why the second princess of the kingdom appears before her. She reviews Chris's background and understands how Chris's father, born in a branch family connected to the Castellano line, carries magic strong enough to rival the family head, which led him to be taken into the royal bloodline and married into the main family, giving Chris a rightful claim to the throne despite her branch origins. Alan realizes the true reason lies in Chris being an awakened one, whose magic surpasses even the former king, and she recalls how the Zion religion honors such gifted people as divine children chosen by the Creator God. She reflects on how commoners sometimes awaken too, just like herself. Chris's caretaker then reveals that the entire day was arranged because he wanted Alan to meet Chris, and Alan concludes the princess is likely a reincarnated person as well, which forces her to hesitate because careless speech toward nobles could become dangerous even though silence cannot last forever. Chris approaches Ray and reminds him that power never defines worth, remarking that he only suffers because of false accusations, and she notes that reincarnated people remain few in number and rarely surpass the rank of a viscount. Ray acknowledges her words while Alan observes their maturity and prepares to bring up something important. When Ray wonders what she intends, Alan reveals her wish to supply him with sweets regularly, the same kind she used to sell at her stalls, and Ray responds with agreement and offers support to her brigade, though Alan decides to confirm everything with Captain Sioji. Ray promises to handle the paperwork and asks her to pass his regards. As everyone parts, Camilla grows dizzy, steps outside for air, and Ray watches her with concern. Chris then calls Alan for a private moment, and Alan approaches nervously, feeling the pressure of standing before royalty. Chris suddenly requests that Alan lift her bangs, and Alan hesitates but complies, causing Chris to stare with widening eyes and overwhelming excitement as she inspects her again. Chris marvels at Alan's height, golden hair, emerald eyes, and deep voice, comparing every detail to Hakubakyun from the mobile game Wonder Stage, and she becomes convinced that Alan stands before her as the reincarnation of her beloved character. This reaction triggers memories from a few years earlier when Yui proudly displayed her ETA bag for an upcoming concert, reacted with joy at a new Hakubakyun gacha, panicked about her empty wallet after spending money at a live show, and lived on cheap bean sprout meals while her kind friend shared courage and teased her gently. Yui's days revolved completely around her idol, and although frugal, her life felt bright until her old life suddenly ended. Chris remembers how reincarnation placed her into a world filled with wealth and talent, yet ripped away Hakubakyun from her reach, leaving only painful memories she keeps tightly in her heart. She steadies herself and insists she is fine now, though Alan observes her trembling and realizes she carried heavy emotions through her rebirth. Chris steps closer, convinced fate brought her to someone who resembles Hakubakyun perfectly, and in a burst of excitement, she rushes forward and knocks Alan down, landing on top of him. Alan groans with confusion as Chris's mood shifts again, her excitement sharpening into determination as she leans close and instructs him not to move. Alan grows alarmed when Chris climbs over him, realizing a princess should never act like this here, but she overwhelms him with unexpected strength that he cannot escape from, even as a reincarnator. Panic rises within him, while Chris calmly points out that the room is soundproof, leaving him no way out, and she insists that her training is flawless despite lacking experience in her previous life, urging him to count the ceiling stains until she finishes whatever she intends. Just as Alan loses hope, Camille bursts into the room and freezes in shock at the scene, snapping Chris back to reality. Embarrassment floods the princess as she realizes she lost all composure before the person she views as her idol, while Alan silently feels grateful for Camille's life-saving interruption. Afterward, Alan wonders how to address Chris properly, and when he hesitantly attempts to use her title, she removes all formality and orders him to call her Sakakibara Yui, making it clear that politeness is unnecessary and he must follow her instruction. Alan agrees and wonders whether she reincarnated or transferred into this world, and Sakakibara explains that her situation resembles possession more than anything else. Only her consciousness from the other world entered this body, and her memories and personality merged with Chris's original self. Alan wonders if that means she has two personalities, and Sakakibara confirms it with pride, believing this fusion formed the strongest otaku girl in the kingdom. Alan grows increasingly surprised because he has never encountered such a case and admits he cannot fully understand it. Sakakibara continues explaining that her royal status traps her indoors, surrounded by incredibly attractive people who overwhelm her, which makes communication difficult and causes rumors to spread that she is odd or poor at socializing. Alan listens quietly and reflects on his own 20 years in this world, never expecting to meet an awakened individual or someone from the same place as him, and he resolves to stay silent about Sioji for safety. Although their conversation runs long, Sakakibara admits she is genuinely glad to have met him today, and she promises to send a letter of support to his brigade later. She also expresses a wish to speak again as fellow Japanese, and Alan nods gently. She seals the moment by calling him Hakuba, then stumbles and wonders what his real name is, prompting Alan to remind her that he is Alan and that she may use Shinju if that feels easier. Later, Alan carries Camilla on his shoulder as she wakes and wonders where she is, and Alan relaxes slightly, relieved she regained consciousness. He checks whether she still feels weak, and Camilla assures him she is fine, rubbing her eyes and recalling vivid memories of meeting Lord Ray and the princess. Alan responds gently, pointing out that she collapsed right after leaving the room and must have dreamed everything. Camilla realizes the absurdity of her memory and apologizes for trying to exaggerate earlier, admitting she never intended to push herself until she fainted. Alan exhales in mild exhaustion and offers her the newest volume of Yumakoi as an apology, and Camilla instantly forgives him, but tugs on his hair excitedly, prompting Alan to protest before placing her down and urging her to walk if she feels so energetic. Camilla refuses dramatically, insisting that she must read Yumakoi immediately or risk collapsing again, and she clings to him while murmuring that he is her savior. Alan wonders what she just whispered, but she quickly brushes it aside. Life settles into calmness again until Aina arrives and informs Alan that the captain wishes to see him at once. And Alan stiffens as he steps into the room, where the captain waits with a stern expression, demanding to know what he has done.
Here I am, know it's been a while. I was in denial about my love. Here I stand, I know I walked away.